Well, we are going to get started now, and like to welcome everybody here. I think that we have an interesting topic today, and I would love to hear questions from you. I'm going to be very interested in how much you guys know about this, what you're learning, because the economy is going to be changed. Just wanted to give you a heads up on some of the things that are going to be happening. So we're going to be having 5-minute breaks between the first and second hours, and then we'll have a 5-minute break between the second and third hours. In just a few minutes, Morgan is going to do a poll, and she's going to send you some questions. She'll explain how that works. And then right after the first break, so I'm going to talk up to the first break, and then Nancy's going to pick up right after that. Right after that first break, there will be a couple of questions. And then at the end, because this is a CE, there will be 6 questions. And Morgan will be sending those to you by email, and then you'll need to respond back to them. And then when we receive your email, that authorizes us to report your credits to CIRCON. Okay. Next slide, Morgan. Okay, so let me, can you go back one slide, Morgan, real fast? Yeah, right there. Thank you. So I just wanted to mention quickly here that we do have several goals for this particular presentation. The overarching goal is to enable you to think productively about the new the new business environment that's being created by AI, and hopefully to suggest how you can help make the people in your book of business and their friends more able to cope with the flood tide that's coming. Some of the subordinate goals that we're going to be talking about are trying to give you an overview of generative artificial intelligence, and we'll talk about what that is in a minute, so that you can understand what your competitors are doing, and your competitors are already getting into this. I watched a presentation from someone who was saying that he helps agents with artificial intelligence. He wanted to charge you $295 per month. And I just thought, man, he doesn't have any idea of what the value is. But people are going to be diving into this all the way. Your competitors are going to be getting into it. We'd like to discuss another subordinate goal, the effects of AI on the ethical concerns of the healthcare industry, in particular Medicare, and also the government's concerns and what we anticipate that they will be looking at and talking about. We'd like to elevate your ability to detect scams. Yesterday, something happened to me. I thought it was a scam, and it turned out to be genuine. So my spidey sense might be set a little too high. And then we'd like to raise your awareness of the potential of AI to build your businesses. As we go into this, you're going to hear us repeating a number of themes quite often. For example, we may be talking about bias quite a bit. We may be talking about transparency quite a bit. We may be talking about explainability quite a bit. It is because all of the different stakeholders have a different approach to this. They're looking at it a little bit differently. And all of them repeat these themes, and they put a little bit different spin on it. And hopefully you'll be able to tell the different spins with these words that are occurring throughout the presentation. The stakeholders that we're concerned about, that we're paying attention to, are the government, both federal and state, carriers, providers, the patients, beneficiaries, clients. That's one group with different terms depending on your perspective. And then agents. And we as agents, we're about the least powerful of all those stakeholding groups, right? Okay, we'd like to start out by asking you some questions. So Morgan, can you go to the next slide, and then we'll take over.
Okay, so we have a couple of poll questions that we'd like to ask you. So if you wouldn't mind, these are kind of some instructions on how to do it, because I know this is something that we haven't asked of you guys before. So let me go ahead and put the poll question in really fast. But basically what you do, once I put the question in, there will be a pop-up on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen that says a new poll has been launched. And in order to answer that question, you'll just need to click on that and then you can answer it. There's a little, if you don't click on it in time or if you miss it, you can go on the right-hand corner of the screen. There's a little button that says activities. You can click on that button. And from here, you click on the button that says polls, and then you can answer the poll question. And then once you've answered, you just click the vote button. So one moment and I will ask the question, and then you guys can all put your answers in. So again, if you have any questions or if this isn't working for you, let me know, because I know this is something new. So we're kind of trying it out. So give me 1 second and I'll put in the first question.
And I am looking at the chat box. So if you click the chat box to pull it up, it's on the lower right-hand portion. Okay. I'm seeing the poll.
So I added one question, and now I'm going to add one more.
I don't see the poll.
I don't either.
Okay.
For me, it just popped up as a box on the bottom right corner. You just click on it, and then it pulled it up on the right-hand side of the screen. But I don't know if that's normal.
Yeah, that's what happened to me too, Lauren.
Yes, that's what's supposed to happen. If you don't see that, you can go into the right-hand corner of your page. There's a little button that says activities, and there's a little image of that on the slide if you look at it. And it's the one that has a triangle, a square, and a circle. If you click on that one, it should take you to the polls.
Oh, it did.
Okay, I click on that, but nothing happens. It just remains static.
Well, so Sid, we'll just have you answer. Hi, Katie. We'll just have you answer. So the question is have you ever used AI before? And the possible answers are yes, no, and some.
And if you don't see it, no worries. You can also put your answer in the chat, or you know.
Okay, where's the chat? What am I looking for the chat?
In the chat box, there's so down at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, there's 5 buttons. If you click on the one that looks like a little, I don't know what that'd be called, a little square with writing in it, and if you click on that, that's where you can.
Well, there's a square with 2 C's in it, and there's a square with an up arrow.
Okay, so if you go further, you want to look further to your right. Does that?
Okay, then there's a hand, and then 3 dots, and then a telephone icon.
Okay, it'd be even further than that.
Oh, you mean all the way over?
Yeah, all the way to their bottom right-hand corner.
All right, click on that. Okay, breakout rooms, polls, Q&A. On one of those.
Yeah, if you click on that and you click on polls, that's where you can answer the questions. Okay, we'll give everybody just a couple more seconds so they can respond. Okay, so the first question that we have is, have you ever used AI? This is, for this, we got 5 votes saying yes, 32 votes saying no, and 3 votes saying some. For the second question, We got, how do you feel about the increasing presence and capabilities of artificial intelligence, AI technologies in various aspects of life? One person said excited, 14 said concerned, 15 said concerned and excited, one said neutral, and then 4 said unsure. So that's just to kind of get everybody to kind of see how everyone else is feeling with it as well, and kind of, so just so that we can also gauge it and see where everybody's at with it for the presentation. So thank you. I appreciate you helping us with this poll. It was a fun little extra thing that we've never done before. So thank you.
Thanks, Morgan. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so we're going to be starting out by talking sort of at the 30,000 foot level. And we're going to look at both the people who see a lot of potential in it. So we had one person who said that they were really excited about AI. And then we're going to also look at the next, which is people who are concerned or worried about AI. So let's start by looking at this. And I'd like to talk about 2 words that I have here in quotation marks. One is generative AI and the other is productivity multiplier. Generative AI is the type of artificial intelligence that can actually produce stuff for you. So you can ask it to write an email for you. You can ask it to write your history paper if you're in school. You can ask it to write an essay for you. You can ask it to write just about anything that you can imagine. You can ask it to write computer code for you, so you don't need to be a computer programmer anymore. Many of the experts in the industry are telling people, don't even learn anymore how to write computer code. It's going to be so good. You're just going to be able to tell the computer to write the computer code, and it'll be able to do it really well within a year or two. And it can already do it well now if you know how to use it. It can generate images. It can generate music. It can generate sound effects. It can generate videos. It can generate most of the stuff that you use on your computer. You just tell it to do it, and it will do it. Let me define real quickly the term productivity multiplier, and then I would like to tell you why this is so important from this positive perspective of AI. A productivity multiplier is a way for people to use technology so that they can make their decisions and execute their tasks faster and more effectively, and produce more in a unit of time. And every time that we have a new technology, for example, someone with a tractor is going to, the tractor multiplies a person's productivity over someone who has a plow with oxen attached to it. And this is turning out to be something that most people think is going to be a huge productivity multiplier. I'd like to just sort of give you a story right now about how you as a Medicare agent are going to be able to use it, right? So this is sort of, it's not pie in the sky. We could actually do this right now. We would have to know enough to sort of cobble the system together. But I'm anticipating that this will be feasible for everybody within this year. So imagine having a personal assistant, and it's on your desktop, and you can actually talk to it just the way you can talk to Siri or Alexa. And you tell your AI agent, your AI assistant, I'd like, and so you do this. Let's say that you do this on the 1st of October, so about 2 weeks before AEP starts. You tell your assistant, I want you to contact the clients, use all the clients that are in my book of business, and use all of the means at your disposal, telephone calls, text messages, emails, collect their RX, their providers, their pharmacies, and their main health conditions. Get the update on those and record those. Then I want you to use that information to figure out the best health plan that will be available to them in the coming year, let's say in 2025. So go out and use Medicare.gov or use Medicare Center. You'd be able to specify where you wanted it to go. Then once it's determined that, you're going to ask this system to generate a nice message customized to that particular person, telling them that you're recommending that they be on this particular plan the coming year. You tell the AI assistant to email it to them, and then you tell the AI assistant to call them and to set up a face-to-face appointment or a virtual appointment if your client so chooses. And if they choose, then the AI is going to ask them to fill out an SOA, and it's going to ensure that it's filled out. It's going to insert your signature into it, and then it's going to record it in a place that you want it to be. And then you're going to go on with your day, right? This is coming, right? That's the productivity multiplier, where you don't have to figure out how to use all of your software. You just sit down, you give instructions to this AI assistant, and it goes out and does all this stuff for you for your entire book of business. And it's intelligent enough that it won't need much help in making the decisions. Anyway, so that's where we're trying to go, right? That's what's coming. That's what your competitors are going to be doing. That's what you're going to be doing. So let me just point out, this happened in that first set of bullets. I'm just going to pick out a couple of these things. In 2022, the AI market, and that's Siri and Alexa, they were already working before then. It was a $136.6 billion market. And these numbers were created in July of 2023. They anticipated that by the end of 2023, the amount of investment, the amount of value that would be in the companies that were doing AI would have risen to $1.8 trillion. So a 13 times growth in 1 year, a 1,300% increase in value in 1 year. Also during that same period, the gross domestic product of the world, based on just the awareness of AI, increased the value of everything that's going on in the world by $15.7 trillion. The next thing that I'd like you to look at is that there will be a 40% increase in business productivity. You'll be able to do, with AI assistants, you'll be able to do 40% more service and marketing than you do right now, with just a small learning curve at the beginning. One of the things that's so amazing about this is how small the learning curve actually is, because you're talking to a computer that is getting more and more able to understand things almost if it were a human. Now, we're not all the way there yet, and you'll see that in just a second. In that second list of bullets, I would like to jump to the bottom bullet that talks about 40%. So notice, the larger the company, the more likely it is to be involved in it. The smaller the company, the less likely you are to be involved in it. And in this poll that we just took, we sort of confirmed that. So not everybody who's on the call actually did the poll. I think it was maybe the computer wasn't as forthcoming as Sid's computer's not as forthcoming as it would like it to be. But by far, most of the people have never used AI. 4 times the number of people who have used AI have not used AI just on this call, based on the incomplete reporting that we have. That means there's going to be an opportunity here. So let's say businesses that have less than 500,000 in revenue, most of them have not looked at it. That's most Medicare agents. That means that if you can figure out how to adopt it, and Stonehill would love to help you, that means that you're going to be able to develop competitive advantage because most of your competitors have not looked at it. They've felt that it was sort of a tempest in a teapot, that it was going to blow over. It means that you'll be able to, especially if you use it for more than customer service, you use it for marketing, you're going to be able to increase your advantage even more. Morgan, can you go to the next slide, please? And by the way, feel free to jump in here if you have questions. Bob was pointing out, Bob's going to be, so today I'm going to be doing a little bit of instruction or whatever this is called. And then Nancy's going to do some, and then Bob's going to do some, and then Morgan's going to sort of be the culmination of this today. And I just lost my train of thought. Well, I'll just go on. Anyway, so I'd like you to try to step in and ask questions. Bob was pointing out to me yesterday that I have been studying what our agents, Medicare agents, are going to need to manage this for several months now. And he's pointed out to me that I tend to believe that people understand the vocabulary that I'm now using when they don't. And so I'd like to ask you to please step in and say something if I use vocabulary here that doesn't make any sense. Okay, so we've talked. And I almost missed the most important thing on the. Can you go back to the wow for just a second, Morgan? So and here's, I was culminating to this, and I just jumped over it. I don't know if all of you know this, but the population of the world is declining rapidly, and it's anticipated to accelerate. And we have an economic system that is not based upon a diminishing population. Our entire economic system is based on the expectation that there will always be more people in the future than there are in the past. Social Security works because there are more people working than there are taking Social Security. And right now, the baby boomers were the biggest generation. The subsequent generations are smaller. We don't have as big a problem as they do in some places. South Korea is the worst. South Korea has a fertility rate of 0.7 children per woman. What that means is that for every 100 adults who are living in the world right now, for every 100 adults who are living in South Korea right now, there are going to be only 4 great-grandchildren. So let me just compare my family. My family, there's my wife and I. We had 3 children. We now have 9 grandchildren, right? As we go through time, that pyramid is growing. In South Korea, it's going in just the opposite direction. And it's doing this in China and Russia and Spain and Italy and most of the countries in the Balkans and many places. The only places that aren't being challenged are places either that have immigration that offsets this trend to have fewer children. The United States is okay, though the statisticians think that we could be in trouble in 20 years. Canada is okay, but both these countries are okay because of immigration into the country. Now, as there are fewer people to do the work and to do the labor, what that means is that the standard of living is going to be going down. So right now, we don't have an economic system where we can see how we can avoid the standard of living for the entire world going down as there get to be fewer and fewer workers. Except, notice, artificial intelligence could have come just in time, and it could help us through this coming time when the very nature of the economy that we've all relied on for all these years starts to turn, and these productivity assistants will be able to step up and help us so that we can maintain the standard of living that we have grown accustomed to, and maybe extend that standard of living to other people. Okay, Morgan, let's go back. The negative effects of artificial intelligence. And I would like to use a big incident that is occurring, and it's occurring right now. And I don't know how many of you have heard of it or how many of you have followed it in the news. It's not as easy to follow these things in the news as it used to be. But there was a group that, and this is the costliest cyber attack in US history, and it was done with artificial intelligence. A group called Aleph V, or Black Cat hackers, attacked a subsidiary of United Healthcare Group called Change Healthcare. Change Healthcare deals with electronic records. So if you go to a pharmacy to get your medication, they use Change Healthcare to talk with the insurance company, and the insurance company says yes, they can get that particular prescription, and the copayment is this, right? When you go to a physician, the physician asks you if you have health insurance, and you say yes, and they take your health insurance, and what they do is they look up on the system to find out if you indeed have that health insurance and if they can access it. Hospitals use it to submit claims to the insurance companies. So it was, go ahead. So this particular set of software from United Healthcare was taken down. It was attacked. It was a cyber attack that started on February 21st, and it's still ongoing. The attack has stopped, but trying to clean up after it is still ongoing. It affected, at minimum, 1 million physicians. They were not able to do their work. It affected 39,000 pharmacies. They were not able to do their work. It affected 6,000 hospitals. They were not able to do their work. 2,400 insurance carriers, and it compromised. The federal government is crawling all over United Healthcare, trying to figure out how much PHI and PII were compromised. So we don't know what that's going to be. This was, and I'm going over to the right-hand bullet column now. This was a ransomware attack. They got in using AI. And let me just sort of give you this what they used AI. So they had this AI assistant, and they created this AI assistant, and they told it what to do. And they said, we want you to go out to all these different healthcare companies, and we want you to find the vulnerable one. And then we want you to figure out what the vulnerability is. Then what we want you to do is we want you to write code yourself to exploit that. And we want you to go in and when you get inside of the system, we want you to lock it up, and we want you to post a ransom. Notice that the only way that United Healthcare or Change Healthcare, the subsidiary, is going to get their systems back online is if they pay a ransom to us. And if they pay a ransom to us, we'll let them bring their systems up. Well, immediately the reporters, when they were looking at this, they went out and they asked for it to be done on Bitcoin. So immediately the reporters went out and started watching Bitcoin, and they found the Bitcoin account for this Aleph V, or Black Cat hacker group, and they saw the ransom amount of 350 Bitcoins, which is the equivalent of $22 million paid to this Black Cat hacker group. Immediately, they asked United Healthcare if they had paid for it, and United Healthcare wouldn't answer the questions. Right now, we have FBI and Health and Human Services who are investigating this. For that month, what happened is everybody had to sort of go back to paper-based processes, which meant that they were only processing 10 to 15%. This put in doubt all of the finances, the financial ability of these physician groups, of these pharmacies, of these hospitals, everything. to stay in business when they could not be billing and they could not be collecting money, threatened all those. Because of that, United Healthcare had to step in with emergency lending. The United for physician groups, the U.S. government stepped in to help hospitals with this. There's been a large loss of trust in the public space because of this. So attacks are going to be, if you can actually tell your assistant to go out and attack somebody, you can see the danger there, right? And there are going to be people now who are having to look at all of this stuff. We're going to have black hats and white hats, and unfortunately, there is no way now that the horse is out of the barn. There is no way to say, well, we're not going to do artificial intelligence. We're not going to do any of this stuff. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about this. So notice again, what we're talking about here is we're asking these AI assistants to do stuff for us by generating information, by observing things, by trying to figure stuff out. And what that means is this generative artificial intelligence, and really it came to the awareness of the market at the tail end of November of 2022. I didn't see this until probably mid-January of 2023. And I've been trying to come to understand it, and I think that you guys are going to need to understand it. I'm not sure the degree that you're going to need to understand it, depending on how intuitive the tools are that we're going to be able to provide you with. For example, if you use Medicare Center, and if you're appointed through Stonehill, you'll be able to use Medicare Center. If you're through Kellogg, you'll be able to use Medicare Center. And there are other FMOs here around Utah and Idaho and Colorado and Arizona, wherever, that are up through Integrity Marketing and can use Medicare Center. They have actually started providing you with artificial intelligence in there right now. And they have managed to handle some of the hardest stuff there, in my mind, as I was trying to figure out what agents we're going to need. They have managed to isolate it so that you can use artificial intelligence on the PHI and PII that you have on a particular client in there. You'll be able to go in and ask questions, and instead of having to navigate to all these different forms that you have filled out, what are their prescriptions, what's their birthday, what are their grandkids' names, or whatever it is, you just ask questions real quickly to the AI, and it's able to go in and get the answers and put them up on the screen there for you, so that if you're talking with them on phone or whatever, they have the impression that you are really on top of things because you understand their family and their needs so well. So this is it's coming, right? There's no way to stop it from coming. And so what that means is, if that's going to be a good thing for you or a bad thing for you is a matter of interpretation. It really is that. And if you choose to interpret it so that you become curious and so that you try to understand what's going on, you're going to be able to understand what's happening in the economy and not be frustrated by the changes. You'll still be frustrated. I'm still frustrated by the changes I'm seeing. But at least you'll be able to understand what's going on and try to figure out how you can either protect yourself or you can participate in some of the coming economic trends. So there are both benefits and dangers to this, and I just want to quickly list some of them and then just give you a couple of quick stories. So less expensive and better service. That's one of the benefits that's coming, right? And I think you probably understand that now. Faster development of service explanations and marketing materials. That's something that you as Medicare agents are going to be able to do. Automating more decisions and tasks than ever. These can be, all sorts of regulatory tasks. By the way, when I was working on certifications and everything, it's amazing how quickly you can use some of these tools to get through your certifications and everything. If you don't exactly understand the interpretation that one of the tests is asking you and everything, you can actually ask the assistants to step in and give you a hand, and you can go through it faster. So we've got improved worker productivity. That's just one way. Here are the dangers that people are concerned about: loss of control, job losses, privacy concerns. And then, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna, this ethical dilemma thing here, right? So data can enable faster and better service, or it can enable better crime and discrimination. And there's quite a bit of anxiety that AI is going to exacerbate the economic disparities. There are steps being taken so that actually it can heal over some of the economic disparity that's already out there. And that's one of the things that we're hoping that as a group of Medicare agents and everything who are under the integrity umbrella, that we'll be able to participate in some of this. Stonehill is really looking for ways to help you guys, though we're not completely there yet. Let me just quickly mention a couple of things. I don't know if you guys know who Tyler Perry is. He is a film producer, Hollywood film producer. And last month, the company that sort of kicked this whole thing off, it's called OpenAI, came out with artificial intelligence where you can write a paragraph and you can tell it to produce a video, and it will produce a video, and it can do it and make it look realistic because this AI understands how physics work. So it understands that gravity pulls things down. It understands if you throw something that it goes in a parabolic arch. It understands that if the wind is blowing, it moves your hair. And so when you ask it to develop videos for you, you just type in the words, it listens to your words, and then it produces this video. Now, the videos are still very short, but you can see how a person in the very near future will be able to say, you know, I'm kind of bored right now, and I don't want to read one of those long, boring novels that my parents used to read. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and I'm going to ask, instead of watching a sitcom for half an hour or something, you'll be able to go and say, I'd like you to develop a sitcom for me, and I'd like it to be about this, and I'd like to have these people in it and everything, and it will develop it. Right? That's kind of where we're going. And so this Hollywood producer named Tyler Perry looked at that, and he had just started collecting money for an $800 million expansion of his Georgia production studio. And he canceled the whole thing. He saw the potential of this. He saw how good it was, how quickly things are changing, and he just canceled it. And there are all sorts of stories in the same way that are going on that we need to know about. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, Gene.
By the way, Doug, kids in junior high school are already doing this.
I don't
They
have
are.
any sound.
Yeah, and it's giving teachers a hard time because they're using it to write their papers, right? And so now we have artificial intelligence that writes students' papers for them, and we have artificial intelligence that the teachers are using to catch the papers that were written by artificial intelligence. One of the things that you can do with this artificial intelligence is you can have it write something for you, and then you can say, you know, that sounds just a little too academic. Can you please make it so that it sounds like an 8th grader wrote it? Or can you make it sound like a 4th grader wrote it? And
I'm trying to find
it
a
revises
little
it.
white.
Okay. I already mentioned that. So here, I'd like to just kind of briefly go over some of the things that Medicare agents are going to be able to do with it. And I've already mentioned that you can currently use Medicare Center's AI assistant right now. We just found this out last week, and we've been we haven't tested it out really well yet, but as it was explained to us and shown to us, we were quite impressed with what it can do right now and where we think that it's going to go in the future. So there is a possibility that you'll be able to tell this AI or an AI that you have on your desktop to do just what we talked about again, which is contact your clients, collect your prescriptions, providers, pharmacies, and get an update on their main health considerations, figure out the health plan, right? So you could say, I want you to look at Medicare Advantage plans. I want you to look at Medicare supplement plans. I want you to look at both of them and know what their life is and figure out what plan that you're going to recommend so that, and I want you to also come up with reasoning for the recommendation that you've done, and it will give you the reasoning that when you're meeting with them face to face, you could pass it on, or that reasoning would become part of the document, the letter that you asked the AI assistant to generate and send to your clients. It could also get voice signatures, things like that. By the way, this image here is an image that I ask AI to generate. I said, would you just please make an image that looks like it's AI? And it generated this, and it looked kind of cool. If you try to get in and read the words don't mean anything and everything. So what it did is it went out and it looked at a bunch of pictures that people had labeled as AI and said, oh, if I generalize it, it kind of looks like this.
I'll turn my microphone on.
And it set it up. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going to start getting into the ethics a little bit more. And these are some of the ethical dilemmas that are going to be facing you, that are facing the government, facing the carriers, the hospitals, and everything else. And the concerns sort of come into two categories. There are social concerns that are around discrimination, and then there are financial concerns. And so the column on the left is the discrimination concerns that I just drew straight out of the federal non-discrimination training for 2024. These are all the different kinds of discrimination that they specifically mentioned that they are concerned about. And then I drew the bullet list on the right, and I drew those definitions straight out of the fraud, waste, and abuse training that you all know and have probably done for years. I would like to sort of call your attention to some things here. And the reason I'm calling your attention to it is because the way I'm interpreting, especially the fraud, waste, and abuse, you can see how the AI assistants can actually be created to home in and help people commit more fraud, commit more waste, and commit more abuse. So I'm thinking that, yeah, Karen, I can certainly share these slides. And we'll talk about that at the end, where I'll share them. So let me just point out what these definitions of fraud, waste, and abuse are from the perspective of artificial intelligence, from someone who is trying to use an AI assistant to take advantage of things that are happening. So fraud, and I think that fraud is something that every single Medicare agent understands really well. There's nothing hard to understand about fraud. You know, it's knowingly and willfully executing a scheme to try to get money that should not come to you and have that money. Waste is it's got a really bad turn to it, and I think the government is trying to do that deliberately. But what happens is, because they've taken and put this negative spin, they're throwing shade at this particular practice. It makes it difficult to understand. So here's what they actually mean, and notice how you could use an AI assistant to do this. What waste is it is a practice that you as a physician, you've been doing for a long time, and you know that you have to do it, but it's just part of your daily routine or your weekly routine or your monthly routine, and you have never taken the time to realize, oh, we could do something better that would eliminate this. So the government is trying to say, you people are engaging in practices that cost the government money, and if you would just take the time to think about it, you would recognize those practices no longer have a useful function. And we wish you would do that, and we wish you would stop. So here's a practice, and notice you'll be able to take AI, and you'll be able to say, if you're a negative actor here, you'll be able to take an AI agent, an assistant, and say, you know, I think that the government is just letting these vaccinations go through. Let's just charge every single person who comes through the office, in the physician's office, let's just charge them a flu vaccination if this happens and this happens and this happens, right? And voila. Abuse is not a practice of waste it's not a practice, it's not an ongoing repetitive thing. Abuse is the way that they define it as sort of a one-time act. You do something, you charge the government, you have to give justification for it, but now you could set up an AI assistant to do this periodically and to give the proper justifications and adapt the justifications and the dates and everything else that need to be adapted for the request to become legal. And I just wanted to point those things out. So what this does is this means that we have an idea of looking at this stuff. We have an idea of some of the things that we're going to see changing, evolving in ethics as we are taught ethics and as we are going to be expected to practice ethics. Next slide, Morgan, please. Okay. I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to be sort of going fast. I tend to talk a lot. Here are the traditional ethical concerns. So these are the concerns that you have been trained on. These are the measures that the government is taking to try to address their concerns about us in the private sector and what it is that we do. And so these are the things that they've asked us to do. And I'm not going to go through them here. So just sort of glance at those and say, yeah, you can, I imagine you'll look at most of these and go, I remember being subject to that or being subject to this. Notice that last one mandates professional development through ongoing education. That's what we're all engaged in today. Anyway, sort of look at that, kind of remember that, because we're going to now look at where we think the ethical concerns are going to be evolving. And what's going to be happening is that things that are on this particular list are going to get dropped down. They're going to be removed from this list and they're going to be replaced for other things. What I also would like you to notice is that this is not, and also in the slide that's coming, neither one of them are really logically tight ethical lists, right? They are sort of the things that are top of mind. It's sort of the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And so the government, it knows that if it got too ethically rigid, that it would sort of destroy the economy and what everybody is doing. And so they try to just take the things where news stories make things look bad, or the voters are talking to them. Okay, next slide. So here's some of the new ethical concerns, and there's going to be some overlap between these. I'd like to just mention some of these. Nancy and Bob and Morgan are going to be going into these things a little bit in more detail. So this is sort of an overview that we're going to be looking at right now. Because these artificial intelligence agents or assistants, large language modules, generative intelligence, whatever you want to call it, they act like a mind in many ways. And so what happened during their development, there were terms that were used in the context of artificial minds, and then there are terms that are used in the context of natural minds, like in people. And so now what we have happening is we have this convergence where we have terms like bias that is characterized as much human thinking, and we have terms like bias that characterizes artificial thinking, and the two aren't exactly the same, but now in the same conversation we're talking about bias versus bias, right? So there's a little bit of that. Same thing is happening with transparency. I'd like you to notice the term right in the middle of the page, explainability, and the other term, accountability. Explainability is going to be difficult, and we're not going to go into it very much right now, but here's, in a nutshell, here's what's happening. The machines are making decisions, and the machines don't know how they made the decisions, and they can't tell us. And we as humans cannot look at those decisions, and we cannot tell how the machines made the decisions. There are a few things that we're doing, and we'll get into them here in just a second, and I'm rushing. Accountability, that the courts are going to have to be involved with that. Next slide, Morgan. Okay, so I was going to spend a little bit of time on this. This is my final slide. I am going to just go over these very quickly. AI hallucinations is a big problem, and that is a problem that you have when you're talking with a human being. When you're talking with a human being, you have to actually say, are they telling me the truth? Do they know the truth? Do they know the whole story? What is it that they don't know, and what they do know? How far can I trust it? How far can I implement what they're telling me? These artificial minds, you have to do the same thing, because what they do is they'll get 2 or 3 facts that they'll get off the internet. They're smart enough to know that those 2 or 3 facts don't give you the complete answer to your question. And so just like a human being would do, what they do is they figure out the words that are going to hook those 2 or 3 facts together so that when they're talking to you, it makes sense. And they do this, and sometimes they have to infer facts that aren't actually the case. So you will receive sometimes answers to questions, and some of the answers that you get are clearly wrong. That's clearly a hallucination. Some answers are clearly right because it corresponds with what you already know, but sometimes they're in between, and they don't know, and you don't know that it's in between. And so you actually have to think about it, and you have to say, is this right? Is this wrong? There's a measure that is coming into the fore right now to try to solve this particular problem, and that's called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. And there is an AI that is very useful, especially if you're tired of all the advertising that is on the Google search engine or on the Bing search engine or something like that. You go to a place called Perplexity AI, you ask questions, it gives you straight answers, it gives you no advertising. All it does is it gives you little footnotes that lead you to the documents where it pulled its information from, and you can go verify its interpretation of it. And I had a story that I'm not going to tell you that shows you how. I mean, I went the other night and I did a search. It gave me answers, and I just wanted to look at the places it got the documents, and it got the documents from a place that were not from a topic that was not associated from what I wanted to do. So I knew I couldn't trust the answer. And we need to start doing that almost as if we're talking to a person. AGI, this stands for Artificial General Intelligence. This is what people are trying to go right now, where the computer can look around and it can determine what's relevant and important. Right now, the AI that we're using requires a human to say what's relevant and what's important. Last thing here, deep fakes. The law enforcement people were talking to us in several of these seminars that I've gone to about the concern that they have. You can actually use artificial intelligence to take a video of someone who's doing something unlawful, and you can ask the artificial intelligence, you can then feed in pictures of a person from various angles, say 5 pictures, in various light, and then you can tell the artificial intelligence to use those portraits of that person and replace the person who actually you filmed doing something with the person that you fed in, and it will take and it will put that person into that film of a crime being committed, or showing that a person who committed the crime was not actually there. They were across town and they were at a restaurant and they were having dinner. So you can use these things as deep fakes to deceive people, to do scams, and law enforcement is really concerned about this, and we're trying to figure this stuff out. Okay, next slide.
Okay, I guess we'll begin here. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the points that Doug mentioned. So I'm going to focus on 4 main components of some of the ethical concerns and impacts. So I'll be talking about biases, transparency, explainability, and accountability. And before I begin, I wanted to mention I was listening to an international summit, and there were 5 different countries that had joined. It was someone from the Netherlands, Singapore, Canada, and the US, and there was one other one. South Korea. And they were talking about the concerns of the insurance industry. And they really, I mean, they had some great thoughts about what to do and how we can monitor what's going on. And this was kind of a funny comment. The commissioner from Maryland, it was a female, and she said, you know, the main thing we have to watch for is we need guardrails so we do not follow our GPS off the cliff. So that's kind of a goal. And then they mentioned it during the meeting. Okay, we can't be following our GPS off the cliff. In other words, don't let AI or technology take over what we're doing. Oh, I'll move along here and we'll talk about bias. And as Doug mentioned, bias can be talked about in 2 different ways. That's what's interesting about it. So AI systems can inherit biases from training data, leading to unfair or discriminatory outputs. And the objective of demographic and socioeconomic factors contribute to biases, leading to potentially unfair treatment based on age, gender, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status. So developers of AI create bias to offset human bias. In other words, this equation is historical bias plus developer bias equals truth, hopefully. That's the goal. That's what the good ethical developers are trying to create. So developer bias can go off the rails. And here's an example. I don't know if some of you heard about their Gemini system, where the system refused to generate images of white people. And these were historical images. And anyway, they did that and it created some major problems. They are now not online until they get that worked out. So just by one decision, biases can have tremendous impact. So in healthcare, historical bias is especially troubling. So you think about the diagnoses and underwriting and claims processing. And we'll talk more about this idea of the diagnoses, and Bob will also highlight that as well. Okay, Morgan, next slide, please. Okay, so mitigating bias in AI models. You can conduct regular audits and monitoring, and you need to rectify the biases as you go along. That's almost the only way you can do it. And then you can have diverse and representative data, ensuring that training data is diverse and representative to mitigate the biases, and implement fairness metrics so that you cross the board and you don't, your biases are neutral. And then you can also have ethical guidelines and compliance. And that means to adhere to ethical guidelines and legal regulations to ensure fairness and compliance with anti-discrimination laws. So, just to sum up here, addressing bias and ensuring fairness is not only an ethical imperative, but also contributes to building trust among policyholders and stakeholders. As AI continues to play a significant role in the insurance industry, a commitment to fair and unbiased decision-making is crucial for maintaining a positive reputation and meeting ethical standards. So in other words, it's really, really important to try to watch these components so that people can trust it. Okay, Morgan, next slide, please. Okay, so this one is what Doug talked about when he said transparency is really important. So the transparency of communication is critical for, number one, for ethical conduct, two, accountability, and ultimately, three, trust. So transparency reduces the likelihood of recipients, beneficiaries, and clients being surprised. So yeah, you don't want them to be too surprised. And transparency makes it harder for authors, providers, and insurers to execute ulterior motives and hidden fees. So transparency makes messages and processes comprehensible. And in a complex world like ours, the lack of transparency alone can inspire distrust. Okay, Morgan, next slide, please. Okay, so and Doug mentioned before, there are two expected types of transparency. One is feasible, and that's for human decisions and conduct. Their subjects and recipients can demand transparent explanation of how other people use AI systems. Infeasible transparency of technical cause and effect. AI systems are not yet theoretically understood nor accountable. It's just like he was saying, the systems are kind of developing their own way of operating. Now, these next words they're kind of nomenclature that you hear in the industry, but they're fascinating. Doug was explaining how these work, and they're sequential. So we are going to be having another training in April, and we'll talk more about these five terms and what they actually mean and how these artificial intelligence systems are developed. So it relates to neural networks, tokens, parameters, embeddings, and temperature. And they're kind of technical terms, but we can explain those more. So in the future, success of insurance carriers, providers, and even the government is going to depend on the trust of the customers, clients, and beneficiaries. But the water's already boiling. Conflicts between carriers and providers over prior authorization. That's starting to happen now. And here's a question. What type of entity makes a better decision? An experienced physician or a well-trained AI system? And that is really starting to create a problem. Okay, Morgan, next slide, please. Oh, Morgan, can you advance to the next slide, please? There we go. Thank you. So to help with this, user attribution of transparency. Transparency is an attribute of the user's interaction with the AI system, influencing perceptions of trust and understanding. And you can build trust through integrity, demonstrating integrity in the formulation and implementation of AI systems without hidden agendas helps establish the trust. And then you clarify responsibilities for errors, distinguishing between errors that are attributed to AI systems and those resulting in human factors aids in accountability and learning from mistakes. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so think of the insurance industry like a board game. The AI systems used by insurance companies are like special devices that help track the game's rules and decisions. Customers are like players in the game, and they want to understand how these devices work to feel confident and secure. So this game showing here, this image, was actually created by an Adobe AI system, and it doesn't really exist. Nobody knows the rules. It's kind of a mix between, you see little chess pawns and checkers, and it's just a mix of things. So you don't really know how that game works. So it would be frustrating to try to play that. Okay, Morgan, next slide, please. So understanding AI systems in insurance is like understanding the rules of the game. It empowers customers to make informed decisions and feel confident about their insurance experiences. So just like a lot of us know how to play chess, and if you don't know, you can learn. So that just by learning it helps you feel more empowered. And that's kind of what we're trying to point out here, that's what this is about, this transparency and how these things work. Okay, Morgan, next slide, please. Okay, Doug mentioned the word explainability and why it is quite difficult because you're working with these machines. So explainability in artificial intelligence refers to understanding and interpreting machine learning model decisions by making the system's internal workings transparent. It provides insights into the model and reaches specific outputs. So trust and acceptance, they're critical sectors like healthcare and finance are examples of where AI decisions are crucial. And then challenges. Complex modes in advanced machine learning models, such as deep learning, can become complex like black boxes, making it difficult to understand their decision-making processes due to numerous parameters and complex computations. So that's what Doug was meaning before when he was saying it's really difficult to figure out how are they learning this and what are they doing? So anyway, next slide, please, Morgan. Okay, so applications in critical sectors would be healthcare. Explainability is crucial for acceptance of AI in healthcare, ensuring patient safety and informed decision-making. And in finance, explainability is vital for regulatory compliance in finance, preventing discriminatory practices and ensuring fairness. Okay, next slide, please. So user-friendly explanations, creating explanations that anyone can understand, even without technical knowledge. So that's one of the goals. That's what they're trying to do. And ethical considerations that go along with that are bias and fairness. Understanding decisions helps identify and fix biases, promoting fairness, and accountability. Explainability allows scrutiny of AI decisions, holding individuals or organizations accountable. So in summary, explainability is essential for ethical AI, especially in healthcare and finance. Efforts to improve explainability involve model choice, techniques, and clear communication to ensure AI is accurate, understandable, and accountable. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so here is a question. We're going to have two questions. I'll read these to you. And again, I apologize. I was reading those slides, but you almost have to read them because that information is fairly complex. So anyway, I'll read these questions. Then if you'll go down to the chat and answer it in the chat, we'll monitor it, okay? So what is the purpose of explainability techniques in AI? A, to make AI models more secretive and mysterious. B, to complicate the decision-making process of AI models. C, to complicate the understanding of AI models. And D, to provide insights into how AI models arrive at their decisions. And you guys jumped in front, you're all answering it correctly. Hopefully that was not a hard question. Okay, the answer is D. All of you are correct. The other options are kind of entertaining in a way. Okay, it's fantastic. It looks like we have our answers, and all of you were correct. Oh, there are a couple B's, but okay.
Sorry, Nancy, I
Where are
switched.
we
to
supposed to-
We're answering the second question.
So
Oh, you're dipped on the second one. Okay. And
Where are we
it looks
supposed
like,
to- Where does the
Okay.
answer go?
so Morgan, do you want to do the second question?
yes, it's on the second question now.
Okay. Okay, I couldn't see that switched. Okay. And I guess I don't need to read those. You're all doing a great job.
So I think someone was asking where you put the answer. If you look at the lower right hand portion of your screen, there are 5 icons down there. The middle icon that looks like a bubble in a newspaper cartoon. If you click that, that opens up a place where you can talk, you can write something. So you put your answer in there.
Okay, very well done. Vince, I noticed that you said to intentionally confuse the healthcare professionals. And maybe that will happen.
I know
No,
sometimes
I
people,
answered the second one first and the first one second. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. But I thought you meant it intentionally. That's okay.
It's effective at that too.
Yes. And that will probably be more so, don't you think? Okay. Don't worry, we're almost through. I know this is a lot of information. Okay. So accountability. This is our final topic. Transparent AI systems make it easier to hold them accountable. So the more transparent, like you're saying here, it's easier to hold them accountable. So the challenges are the complex algorithms. Deep learning and neural networks are really complicated, which makes explaining them very difficult. Black box models, some AI models are like black boxes. Similar to this image you see, kind of mysterious. You don't really know what's happening here. We cannot see inside them, so it is tough to understand how they work. This can be a problem, especially in important situations. Okay, how to make AI more transparent? Just use explainable techniques. Use methods to help explain how decisions are made, making them clearer. So you almost have to explain how the decision was made rather than just say, okay, accept this. So that's what they're going to have to do to keep it to remain ethical. Okay, Morgan. One more slide here. This is the last slide here on accountability. Establishing clear lines of responsibility and accountability for AI systems is essential. This includes addressing issues such as who is responsible for the outcomes. It involves navigating legal and regulatory landscapes, ethical frameworks, and the philosophical thoughts about responsibility in a world increasingly shaped by intelligent machines. So that is how it's starting to feel. We're going into a world that's going to be increasingly shaped by intelligent machines. So that's what's going to create some challenges. But accountability in AI systems is multifaceted and an evolving concept. Since AI systems are like a moving target, it involves the following considerations: a careful orchestration of ethical concerns, an understanding of roles and responsibilities, and a commitment to transparency and redress. As AI continues to integrate into our social tapestry and becomes more present, the endeavor to establish accountability becomes not just a legal or organizational imperative, but a philosophical and societal one. And it will shape the contours of responsible AI development and usage in the future. Okay. Next slide, Morgan. Thank you very much. And Bob will take over here. So Bob, there you
I'm
go.
right here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got a technological for me serious work here. I've got two computers working, and I'm trying to go back and forth between them. So anyway, greetings to everyone. Thanks for being here. As we go through the next few slides, I think it's important that you add your thoughts and your insights as we go through. I'd appreciate comments. I want this to be a discussion, and I am interested in your thoughts on this. But let's talk about consumer distrust of AI by the numbers. We see that there is, if you look at the slide, 63% of U.S. adults think the development of artificial intelligence for consumer products raises a very or moderately serious privacy security risks. I'm reminded as I go through this slide, what came to my mind was 2001: A Space Odyssey with the HAL 9000 computer, which is different than Hal Stone, who we all admire and work with. But that HAL 9000 computer, do you remember that? I mean, the AI thought process has been around for a long time. That Space Odyssey, 2001 Space Odyssey, that was made 56 years ago. And it was based on a book that was written in 1951. So you're talking, 72 years ago. It's been the AI concept has been around for a very long time, and I think part of what we see how AI is presented in movies and in newspapers and news stories, I think it's portrayed many times in a very negative light, like the HAL 9000 trying to kill the astronauts, killing several astronauts, and the one surviving. But that's one of my favorite movies to watch, and it's all based on AI with that HAL 9000 computer. 55% have concerns about machines making mistakes or causing harm due to flaws in their artificial intelligence systems. Some of you know that I sold orthopedics for 30 plus years before I came over into the Medicare market. And they were just, when I left that, they were just getting into robotic surgery. And I had several orthopedic surgeons. They called it GPS surgery at the time. And I had several surgeons say to me, well, Bob, why would I need GPS in my own neighborhood? And, that lends to the thought that I think people tend, at this point in time, people tend to believe other people or trust other people before they trust the machine. So I think that's an important concept for us to understand, is there's a lot of pushback from the general population towards AI. I mean, that's a big segment. The Morning Consult poll showed 56% of U.S. adults don't currently trust AI to make important decisions on their behalf. What's one of the most important decisions people make? Of course, is healthcare. and if you jump down to the MIT Age Lab survey, of course, this is aging related research into our market space, people 65 and older. You're going to see a situation where respondents have said in polling and survey, they do not trust AI systems when making important life decisions. And the most important life decision in people in the Medicare space, is healthcare. The race in practical terms, this goes back to AI, and our understanding as agents and us at Stonehills, whoever first wins trust of the consumer wins. You've seen that. I know that you have seen that in your own business practices, the people that you have a good relationship with, book of business, the reason they stay with you is they trust you. I've met several of my own clients who have said to me, well, Bob, what do you think is best for you? And they're asking me what my interpretation is of all the plans out there. And I'll tell them, well, this is who I'm signed up this year with. I was signed up with somebody different last year, but they have this trust component that they have built through your relationship with your clients. Now, can AI, a machine, build that same relationship with consumers? At this point in time, I don't think so. Personally, I don't think so. Now, I think as AI is evolving, and it's evolving so fast that, that could totally change within the next, 2 to 5 years, where people do start trusting a machine more than they trust the person. Next slide. And I lost my screen.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
This is Chuck Cowling.
Yes,
There's
sir.
an old saying, GIGO, in computer programming: garbage in, garbage out. And the problem that we don't trust AI is that AI is totally dependent upon the competence and the foresight, all encompassing, of the person or persons creating the software, the algorithms that are running the AI program. And all you have to do is use TurboTax each year and see how many mistakes they make, or any other new software programs that comes out full of bugs. And it takes 2 or 3 reiterations. For years, I've been told by experts in the industry, don't use a brand new version of Windows, for instance, because wait till it's the 2nd or 3rd update to try and use it, because they're going to find a lot of problems with it. And it's just, that's why we have problems with believing this, is that we know that the computer programs we've been using are fallible, and they're no better than the person who wrote all of the code. And
so Charles, let me ask you this. Do you think the AI developer can put in his own biases?
Absolutely.
I think that's happening.
Well, he can't help but do that to a certain degree. He has to make judgments that are non-objective, that are subjective judgments in his rationale to where the program goes, because not every decision is a black and white objective decision to make in coming to the ultimate conclusion. So it's bound to have some bias in it.
I think you're absolutely right. And if you look at the little graphic of 2 people shaking hands, and the one has a hatchet behind him, I think that's where most of us are. You can have 2 people who are trustworthy who work together, but they don't trust each other.
Well, the guy in the hatchet has ill will, perhaps, but you don't even have to have ill will to have bias when you're trying.
I think so.
Programs. It can just be what happens in your mind.
I think you're absolutely right. I think.
Well, it's just the same as that there are 50 plus people on this call. And if you put 10 of us in with one client, there's a good possibility that they would come up with 10 different potential solutions for that client as competent, well-intended insurance agents. And so everyone's bias is going to impact the decisions and the recommendations they make and the products they create.
So, Craig, let me ask you this.
At least with insurance agents, you've only got possible but 10 different associations. There's an old joke about amongst us lawyers. It says, put 7 lawyers into a room and you've got at least 10 different opinions.
Trump.
So it comes down to, Craig,
yes,
and Charles, is the relationship trust factor, doesn't it?
absolutely.
If you have 10 people in the room with 10 different solutions, but the person that is the focal point has a relationship with Craig Pendleton, who's he going to trust?
Right. And that's the thing. It's just, this is simply a tool. And, you know, I view the comparison with a hammer. A hammer can be used to build a house, or it can be used to kill someone. And it's not the hammer's fault. It's the person that's swinging the hammer. And so as we use AI, the same as we use insurance products or anything else, we need to be very ethical and very trustworthy and very well intended as we go forward, because this simply compounds the ability that we have to be to do harm with what we have. And so as you use AI, you simply have to take the information that is good, or that is presented, and you can't use that just on its face. You take that as the basis, and then you say, okay, this doesn't work. I'll change this. I want to say this way. I want to delete this. I want to add this. And so that's just a simple basic format for where you want to go move forward.
So Craig, how do you build ethics into a machine?
You don't. It has to come from the person that puts it in.
Right, the developer.
Exactly.
So let's go down through these bullet points. One, privacy and security. That's a main consumer reason for distrust. That first one says AI listening in the background, like Siri, Alexa, or Google. Yesterday, I was headed down the hill from our house into town, and my wife was with me, and all of a sudden, Siri comes on there and asks me to ask the question again. And I hadn't even, it's listening in the background, to me, that's kind of a scary thing. And I think that's what builds distrust, is people might think that AI is listening in the background, which it currently does. Another is AI facial recognition. We've all seen movies where the entrance into a building in a movie or something is based on facial recognition. I also think about virtual assistants, your co-pilot, so to speak, that give you incorrect information. Is that possible? Yeah. I've got a son who works up in Lehigh for a corporation, and he's in charge of writing their training material for their field representatives. And I've asked him, I said, "You use AI?" He says, "I use it every day, but I have to reread everything that AI puts out because there's always incorrect information in there." So, there's a real positive there, and that can help us, but yet we have to be careful as well. Consumers say there's a fear of bias and fear or reverse bias. Right now we hear of job displacement, that AI is going to really affect that. I mean, we've seen that all in our lifetime, job displacement. It's hard to find printed newspapers. I don't know that anybody even signs up for for a newspaper to be delivered to their door anymore, because you can get news across the internet much quicker than you can with the printed media. So I kind of see where people fear job displacement with AI, but I think that's an ongoing evolution of AI. Lack of transparency. Nancy covered that. It's hard for people to understand how AI is coming up with different things. And we as agents need to be able to understand what our clients, specifically what our clients are being told. If you are going to have people who get on the internet and access AI and ask them questions that might impact your business. So you need to stay on top of that. They talk about dystopian futures. We're talking about things people see in the media, whether it's movies, games, or novels. Next one. So pros and cons of AI for patients. Now, I had a client who was trying to get an MRI done, and he kept getting denied from the carrier. He asked me to jump in, and I got with the claims, and they said, well, they told me that this claim was triaged through their AI system that they had, and the AI system told them, no, do not pre-authorize that. Now that's a scary thought, because when I went back to the client and the client's doctor, three-way call, the doc had submitted all the relevant information and it was still denied. So I think that's a real disadvantage going forward. I know that, we were all involved with that Aetna fiasco with the University of Utah, or many of us were. And one of the sticking points was pre-authorization. So it's one of those things that I think we're going to have to face as agents working with our clients, that we need to be able to somehow access the system and get involved if we're allowed to. Some carriers don't allow you to get involved, others do. But we need to be able to get into the system and be able to have a relationship or a trust factor built so that we can represent our client in a way. We're all looking to help our clients, and that's one thing we need to be able to do. So doctors can explain their reasoning in a way current AI cannot. Do you think patients would trust a machine more than they would trust their individual doctor? What do you think?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I think you're right. At this point in time, I don't think there is a Medicare beneficiary out there who would trust a machine over what their doctor tells them. One of the concerns people have that they voice to me is, if the pre-auth gets denied, what's their first line of defense? Well, this is what the doc told me. The doctor, my doctor, who I've seen for years and I trust, he's telling me this, and these people won't pre-authorize it, and he's telling me it needs to be pre-authorized, and he can't do it until it is pre-authorized. So there's, we're at a place in the space of AI where I believe is still trying to build trust relationships. And I think that's going to take a while, especially with the demographic we work with, people 65 and older. I think that they are going to be less likely or slower to adopt AI as a real solution. Doctors consider holistic patient care, I think, more so than AI can do, but that could change. I think the whole AI landscape is going to change dramatically over the next 5 years. Advantages of AI decisions? Well, the big one is they can take a multitude of data, and get that to apply to an individual where humans don't have the amount of data that AI can access.
Bob,
yeah,
excellent point. But I think it's also, and Doug may have some insight on this. I've just been thinking as you've been talking, AI is continually learning. And as Doug said in an earlier statement, I don't know if it was in the chat or verbally, these AI systems continue to read documents. And so possibly as AI continues to learn, if we, and like say somebody else might be able to know on this, how much of the information that I put in or that we collectively put into AI actually is read and utilized and goes towards that learning curve for the AI. So as AI develops, very potentially our input could help guide the direction that AI learns and the information that it puts out in the future based on the information we give it today. Am I making any sense with that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This all comes down again to, one of it's an advantage and a disadvantage to AI is it's taking all the data that you and I are not even aware of, to bring that to a focal point where, even if we're inputting things, I think it's going to show our bias as well, right? If we're putting stuff into the AI model, it's going to show our bias.
Absolutely.
And again, it's something that we need to be aware of. I see AI as a help and an opportunity for help, because it might show us things that we're not aware of that could really influence the solution.
I got a personal experience with this. I was in the hospital a while back, and they were trying to send me home, but there was certain equipment and nursing care that I was going to require at home for the following 6 or 8 weeks. They kept requesting this information for this equipment and the nursing care, and it was denied and denied and denied until finally they got on with a human and said, look, so far he's had to stay in the hospital 2 extra days because you haven't yet authorized this. As soon as they started comparing the dollars between the two, they said, oh yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, again, it comes back down to the human touch where
one of the things we got to worry about when you mentioned that you had to get involved in a claim dispute that the AI was denying. A lot of that today has to do with vocabulary, because one doctor may use a term a little bit differently for what's wrong with you than another doctor, even though he's referring to the same thing, and it's only programmed into the AI in a different manner. And so the AI keeps kicking it out. And these little variations are what's going to cause problems with that. I think one of the most important thing we've got to do is not become, let ourselves be over-reliant upon AI. It can help and it can magnify your marketing perhaps, but we can't just go out and rely on what AI has done without checking it.
one of the interesting things I've ran into, I have my oldest son is in Medford, Oregon. He works for an AI company out of the Bay Area, and they developed for a small regional airline company in the East to incorporate AI. And he showed me a demo, and I got on that, and I could not tell that I was talking to a machine, because the voice on the other end sounded like a person. It had language nuances that I recognized as a person. I was totally baffled by it. And then he played me a couple of recordings that they'd made for training purposes with people, and they were told right off the bat that it was AI. And there was one recording where a woman had all these changes she wanted to make in her itinerary, and the voice was just walking her through it and making the changes for it. She knew it was AI, but at the end of the conversation, she thanked the AI machine, as you would you'd thank a person for helping you. That was really eye-opening to me. I understand that there is a PNC company out of Florida that has been able to harness AI, and it answers all the phone calls. It enrolls people in car insurance, and it was remarkable to me to see the demo on that. Is that going to affect us as Medicare agents? Possibly, but again, I think the relationship is the most important part of this, as part of our toolbox, so to speak, in having our clients trust us. Most Medicare beneficiaries, that space, the 65 and older space, they have little opportunity to gain literacy about AI, and I think they don't want to gain literacy about AI. They want to talk to a person, period. Whenever I run into a computer problem, if I have one of my grandkids who's in elementary school, holy smokes, it scares me because they can come in and fix things on my computer or on the TV, the smart TV, that of course is smarter than me, as well as my phone. I've got an Apple phone. If I run into a difficulty, if I have a grandchild around me, man, oh man, they can solve my problems. And it's not that I think it's just because I don't have the background in technology like the up and coming generation. So I think Medicare beneficiaries have a little opportunity or desire to gain literacy about AI. Those coming in as we move on are going to be more and more open to that. One of the things we're seeing, and this has been going on, people will go on the internet and use WebMD to get answers. When I used to talk with docs on a regular basis, surgeons on a regular basis, one of the things that bothered them the most was patients would come to them and they'd done all the research on the internet, and they were able to tell the doc what they thought they'd learned on the internet as being what the doctor should be telling them. There was confusion between the two. And I had some docs tell me, one of the worst things is for one of my patients come in and say they've been researching it online. And I think that's a good thing. But there's some pushback on that. I think we need to explain the rewards and risks to our clients and help them prepare for AI, because I think it's going to be a big player as we go forward. Again, when we build trust and friendship with our clients, I think that's our main quiver, so to speak, main tool in our quiver box in protecting our business from AI incursions. Again, I think that's something we need to harness it for our benefit. Next slide. All right, contention over use of AI during carrier underwriting. Do you see AI coming into the carriers as them grabbing that? And I think they're doing it as a cost shaving method of doing business. They have such thin margins in the Medicare space, the carriers do, on reimbursements from CMS. I think carriers are going to really jump on the bandwagon. One of the things I hear during AEP when I meet with clients, especially new clients, they'll tell me that they really turns them off to call customer service about a situation, and they're talking to someone else in a foreign country. I think those are the people that are apt or at risk of losing their positions, because carriers will implement AI primarily to increase their profits. I see that happening. I see them using underwriting, AI in carrier underwriting, again, to increase their profits and to reduce their costs. Provider objections to it is lack of transparency. How are they coming up with these things? Oversimplification of complex cases. I think that's a big one. Legal implications, ethical implications. I think I think the carriers are on the other side of, I see this as a great benefit, where the providers, individual providers, seeing it as a negative instead of a positive. Is that going to change? Probably at some point in time. Next one, Morgan. Data protection. That's that's one thing that we need to be able. Am I on the right slide? I might not be on the right slide. I'm going to go back on my.
No, I think you are on the right slide, Bob.
Okay. I think personally, there's got to be some new laws and regulations to come into our spheres, so to speak, to protect data. If you've got an AI, if someone was hacking into United Healthcare, which then hacked into or got them into CMS, how do you protect clients? How do you teach them? I saw a number the other day that they estimate in 2023 people scamming other people for money was a $8.8 billion business. And I'm wondering in my own mind, how do we program in ethics to a machine? Is that even possible? The only way I can see it is that the laws, regulations are such that the AI has to be able through its systems be able to detect the violation of laws and regulations. Again, I think that comes back to a developer bias. It gets pounded into our heads during certifications. HIPAA, the HIPAA rules, and several other things. Several other places that when we do our certifications, it's really important that we have a good understanding of the HIPAA rules. And somehow those HIPAA rules have to be incorporated, I think, into the AI system. And there'll be some fences or guideposts set up within the development of AI that when it goes into an area that it violates or potentially violates some of the protection laws, some regulations, those are the fences. But I do see going forward that the feds are going to have to, and legislatures are going to have to do something to somehow rein in the ethics of a machine. And I'm not sure how that's going to work. I'm not sure personally how that's going to work, but I think that's something that's going to have to happen. Next slide, Morgan. One of the things that we need to do with our clients, and I do this on a regular basis, is we have to educate our clients on security measures. Have unique, strong passwords. I was helping a client on Tuesday at a business, a group plan, and he was going around on SSA and some other websites. And one of the things I noticed is he was using the exact same password everywhere he went. I think we need to educate, especially the demographic we work with, how important it is to have strong and unique passwords. Be aware that there's malware out there running around. Make them aware of they should have some antivirus stuff going on on their computer. They need to update their programs and apps with the latest security patches. They need to pay attention to website security certificates. Be on the lookout for phishing. We all get that every day. If you're like me, I get emails all the time phishing for information. I got one that tricked me the other day into calling a phone number, and I didn't think it was phishing. On the email, it had the logo of my credit union. It had everything. I mean, they did a really good job in trying to scam me. So there was an issue which they were saying they wanted to know if I thought this was a fraudulent action, fraudulent debit on my checking account. So I called the phone number because I didn't recognize what they were saying. And what did these people tell me on the phone? It was phishing. First thing they said is, we need to make sure it's you. Can you give us this information or that information so we can confirm it's you? Right when they said that, I thought, and I realized they were phishing for me to get information from them. Now, I think a lot of people in our space, and I'm talking demographic, there might be too much trust that they have when they get a phishing email. I see that very often. The other thing is they need to be selective on what they click on. My wife is a neophyte when it comes to the computer, and somebody will send her an email with a link to click on, and I've done everything I can to tell her, don't ever do that. Don't ever click on anything. If you're worried about it, come talk to me, or just come talk to me, because I've done this so long, excuse me, that I can tell when it's a phishing thing or something I don't want to download. I had, on a personal note, the other day, I got from our regular bank account up in Layton, where we used to live, Layton, Kaysville. I noticed on my debit card statement, there was a pizza purchase in Fort Lauderdale last week, several Uber rides over in Europe that I was getting dinged on, and off my debit card. And the first thing through my mind is, how in the world did they get my debit card information? And when I talked to the bank about that, they said, well, have you downloaded any apps? Have you bought anything on the internet? If you got somebody who's in it to scam you, they'll write down stuff to be able to take advantage of you. And that was such a mess. That's happened to me once before. But one thing I think we need to educate our clients on is they need to be, number one, selective about what they click on. Number two, if they question something, to ask someone before they click on it. And maybe, if necessary, call, find a phone number on the internet, call to try to determine if it's legitimate what's going on. Two-factor authentication whenever possible is good. Data encryption. I on my phone, I use on my computer, I use a VPN, virtual private network, because everything's encrypted on that. But it's just, we need to make sure people need to understand they need to minimize the amount of data they give to someone or something that they don't have a real trust factor in, or could be a real source of problem for them. Next slide. Bad habits that may develop from using generative AI. Does everyone know what generative AI is? Doug, are you there? Can you explain that a little bit quickly?
I am. It is AI that will generate writing, music, artwork, videos, or computer source code.
So you could use the word creative AI in replace of generative AI, correct?
Yes.
So that's one thing we need to be aware of is they're telling me it's happened. It's already happened, but they say it's going to be widely used that generative AI or creative AI will be self-generating in and of itself. And I think that's one of the things that a machine can do is, they always talk about we're going to get to a point in time where they're releasing, you probably see it all the time in the news about different robots and what robots can do. And you have some people saying that there's going to get to a point where the robots are going to be able to start building their own robots. I think that's an interesting concept. We need to not neglect. We need to increase our explaining skills to people. Could creative AI could cause a loss of curiosity because people will start relying on AI and trust it implicitly. A loss of motivation to memorize and internalize things, attention spans, Google does that to me. I mean, Google, I guess, is a form of AI because we all go on Google when we research something and it comes up with all the information. It's kind of like, well, why do I need to know this if I've got Google right at my fingertips? I think it's important that we continue and we don't get in a situation where we are unwilling to engage in complex situations where AI cannot help. And again, where we're on the front end of this wave, so to speak, we need to be able to examine and input where we can to make sure everything is correct. Reduced human interactions. I see that right now with social networking. With my grandkids, I have a couple of grandkids that they've got their phone out and they're on different social apps like 95% of their time. I think it can lend itself to ethical desensitization. I'm going to say that. I think, again, we see 8.8 billion being scammed from consumers estimated last year. And a lot of scamming is never reported because people they don't want to be ridiculed for having fallen into that trap. So I think that 8.8 billion is probably a low number. But we need to be open to be able to input ideas on regulatory and legal manners because the scamming is getting people. So it just amazes me. It just amazes me the amount of scamming that's going on. A year ago for Father's Day, my kids went in together and they gave me a $450 Visa gift card. And I thought, well, I'll just keep this for a rainy day when I see something. And I was talking to one of my boys. This is just a couple of months ago. So I got this Father's Day gift a year ago. And I was with one of my kids out to dinner, and he said that he'd lost money on a gift card. And I immediately thought of that Visa card I'd had in my pocket all that time for a rainy day. And so we stopped at the sporting goods store on the way home, he and my wife, and I found something I didn't need, but I kind of wanted. Went up to cash register, gave him that gift card, that Visa gift card, and it got declined. So I called the phone number on the back, and there was zero money in that account. I said, well, when was the last charge? And they said, well, there's a whole bunch of $20 and $25 redemptions on this, but they ended like 3 months ago, but it was constantly being dinged for $20. I go, man, the scammy's just, it's crazy. I was like, I thank my kids for the gift card, but the reality of it is they were scammed and I was scammed. Anyway, Next slide, Morgan. It's
Okay, can everybody hear me? Yes, good.
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're going to continue with the slides. I hope you all are still here, ready to listen. I'm sure this is a lot of information. So some of my slides and some of the things I'll be saying are going to just be kind of reiterations of other things that people have said and other things that we have mentioned that are important in other aspects and so forth. So here we go. Okay, how can we use or how can we as AI users help to prevent malicious or unintended consequences from using AI? So one of the main things too that we've tried to mention throughout is that understanding AI misuse is going to help you to prevent harm and to protect yourself and protect your clients. Responsible use. So always use AI responsibly. So as we've been saying, there's quite a few ways in which you can hopefully use it more responsibly, so that you feel okay using it and you feel okay with your clients if they decide to use it and helping them or anything, but also just to be aware of the impact of our actions and decisions when designing, deploying, or using AI systems. So that in part is when we're using our AI systems, or using the AI systems that have been made available to us, like ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity. These are different AI chat systems that have been put into place that people can use, just to making sure that we know how to use it responsibly, so that we're not causing harm for ourselves or for anyone else. Algorithm transparency. We need to understand how the algorithms work, their biases, like we've been mentioning, and potential risks. This can help identify unintended consequences. That, like we said, bias can be intentional or unintentional. There is a lot of times there's unintended consequences to bias, like we were talking about with Google and their issue with those generated images. So definitely something to be aware of and to kind of make sure that we're continuing to keep up on. And test and evaluate impact. So evaluating the impact on users, society, and the environment before deploying. This is more geared towards those who are creating an AI system, so that they can make sure that it is, being regulated, and that they are sending out something that is going to be, how do I say this? Used and I guess just used correctly. Okay. The next slide is how can we ethically and safely use AI in healthcare? So this is a kind of a big topic, broad topic, kind of put into very simple different bullet points here. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance and a lot of different layers in using AI in healthcare. It is something that we definitely would need to be informed on, and we need to make sure that that the patients are allowed to give informed consent on it. So we should be making sure that patients are given the opportunity to consent to using it in their healthcare, and that it shouldn't just be assumed. It should definitely be part of the things that they are allowed to kind of opt in or opt out of. This is something that it's kind of an opinion of mine. It's not necessarily something that is going to be put in place, but that's kind of something that I think is also going to be important and is going to be helpful with using AI in healthcare. Algorithmic fairness and biases, mitigating the risk of biases in the AI algorithms that could lead to unfair treatment of individuals or groups. So AI algorithms learn from historical data, and which can contain biases. They also learn from the data or information that the person who created them or the team that created them puts in place. So those things are going to contain biases, and these biases can perpetuate inequalities in healthcare. So that is definitely something that we need to be aware of, and something that we need to be trying to mitigate as we continue to move on with AI. Data privacy, only add in necessary data. This will help avoid unnecessary data collection to minimize privacy risks. So this is kind of a mixture of things. So data privacy is obviously important, especially when it's your medical data and clients' medical data. This is something that we do need to make sure our clients know more about. If there is, if they have questions on it, it's really helpful if you can kind of help them out so that they can feel like, okay, I can go to someone who knows what they're talking about and can help me out, so that I don't get, I don't get like any of these things like what Bob was talking about with any of the spam or phishing or anything like that. Those are obviously going to be something that do happen, but hopefully we can help them to understand them a little bit better and maybe help themselves so that they don't get hurt or used by them. Access controls. So strict access requirements would limit who sees the patient data. And this would be an kind of a behind the scenes thing, right? So for access controls, those would kind of be by if the healthcare industry and when the healthcare industry uses AI, they would need to make sure that there are requirements on who can see the patient data and, safeguards put in place to make sure that there is a limited amount of people who have access to that data. Okay, and then human AI collaboration. So there are organizations currently that are focusing on the development of AI with ethical principles through collaborative approaches. So one of them is Partnership on AI, PAI, which is a multi-stakeholder initiative that is playing a crucial role in facilitating global progress on AI ethics issues. There's also another one called UNESCO. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, so don't quote me. But it's the National Institute of Electronics and Information Technology. Or sorry, there's two. Those are two: the UNESCO and the National Institute of Electronics and Information Technology. They've both focused on capacity building, training, transparency, and innovation. So some academic institutions are also driving collaboration around ethical AI through programs that bring together diverse stakeholders to explore and promote responsible AI practices. Collaborations between humans and AI as well as among different AI systems will be essential for the development and implementation of ethical principles, standards, frameworks, and the best practices for responsible AI. Okay, and so on this one, I'm going to kind of note. Oh, whoops! I didn't change the slide. There we go. Okay, this one I'm going to kind of note the image on the screen is AI generated. I put in a prompt into an AI generated system, and this is what I got. So that's kind of a fun little. I asked it to give me an example of a picture with human and AI collaboration. So this is what it gave me. So some of the benefits, some examples of human and AI collaboration benefits are like for blind and visually impaired individuals. Thanks to driving assistance technology, some visually impaired individuals can legally drive under specific circumstances. Self-driving cars and voice assistants can further aid those who can also further aid those who are blind or visually impaired. Quality control, AI is being used at the quality control stage of steel production. The algorithm can identify faults, and then human experts can indicate which are real or not. So this is something that I think I actually mentioned again in following slides, but it's something that is already being done and something that is helping to help have less faults, but also have less harm. for people, which are really important and can be super helpful. So another one is medical assistance. The University of California, San Francisco, developed an AI system to help radiologists analyze mammograms, assisting them in identifying potential areas of concern and making more accurate diagnoses. With this one, that's kind of one of the things that we've mentioned before, where it's important to not just rely specifically on the AI system to analyze it and go, okay, great, yep, they are fine, or no, they're not fine. We need to also make sure that there's, a little bit of mixture of both, of professionals and also using AI. But having that collaboration together can be super helpful in kind of checking each other. Okay, so this next slide is kind of a fun little I don't know, I guess a tidbit of what is happening or what some AI is doing, and how we can use it in everyday life. So the first one is this bird feeder. It's an AI bird feeder, and it actually is it's an artificial intelligence that can identify which species of birds are visiting you. It can also provide you with a list of which bird is feasting that day. It can also provide a live video feed using your camera, and you can watch it for yourself and save clips and images. It's a pretty expensive model, so a lot of these things are not going to be cheap, but they're kind of fun little new technologies that have come out from AI. Let's see, the next one is it's a smart ceiling lamp. So this one is kind of cool. This one can actually, it uses AI vision technology to detect and prevent falls, monitor health, and even track activity patterns. So it's actually being pitched as a tool for the senior living and mobility markets, and will be available in the US this year. That could be a very cool and very helpful thing to help with people who are living at home still, or who are living in an assisted living facility, so that they can know, or so that we can know if they fall, or if they need help, or things like that. The next one's a motion pillow. This one actually just moves if you snore. And so this one is an AI-powered pillow that includes a wireless device that monitors sleep sounds, and it detects snoring and activates airbags in the pillow to reposition the user's head when they're snoring. So this one is quite expensive, which is kind of funny. So if you're really, really want to help with your snoring and it's that important to you, this one might be a good option. Just know that it's a pretty hefty price tag. The next one's an AI-powered smart mirror. So this one's kind of fun because it's the one that looks like a little ring with a mirror with a ring around it. This one is kind of very futuristic feeling to me, and I think that's kind of why I added it, because it's kind of a fun and maybe a little bit scary kind of mirror. So this mirror can detect your mood. So it uses natural language processing to analyze the sentiment of whoever is staring at their reflection, and it can provide affirmations and visuals to boost their mood. So this is something that is kind of cool, but a little bit like, futuristic sounding, could be a little bit scary. So, but I think it's a very fun one to note and to show, because it definitely shows the capabilities of some of these AI tools and things that people are coming up with. Okay, so for this next one, I am going to show you guys how to use an AI chat. So this is just a basic AI chat. There are so many that you can choose from, and you kind of use them based on what you are looking for and how you want to see it. But there are a bunch. Let me see if I can pull up the tab really fast for you. So I'll show you how to use, we'll just use Perplexity this time, and I'll just kind of show you what that looks like. So one moment.
While you're pulling that up, can I tell everybody I'm really impressed with this Perplexity.ai. It can replace all your Google stuff, and you don't have to wade through the advertising and figure out what's content and what's advertising. You just got the answer coming at you, and it's usually better than what you can find in the Google search engine.
Do you
Yes.
like it better than ChatGPT?
Yes.
Okay. Well, someday I want to have a conversation with you about why, but I won't do that now. So that's
Okay. Okay.
Well, I can tell you one of the benefits and the reasons why I definitely like it. One of the reasons why I really like this, I'll just kind of show you first, and so then you can kind of see it. So we can ask it a question. Does anyone have a question that they would like to ask it, or I can come up with one if not? Okay, so I'm just going to come up with a basic question. We're going to ask let's see. Can you give me more information or some information? Can you give me information on how to do a slide presentation about AI? Okay. So we're just going to ask it that basic question, and it gives us these kind of links and these different answers. So it gives us different things that you can use, different systems and things that are good for using or for doing presentations. It also gives you links to their sources, which is something that I really like about it, because it can be hard to, so here are the sources here. It can be hard sometimes, especially with Google, to know if the source is helpful or if it's kind of, going to be biased because they're getting paid to promote this, or, just depends on kind of what you're asking it and what information you're wanting. But this can be a really helpful tool because it gives you different sources. It gives you kind of a bullet point of questions or of answers. And if you're like, oh, well, that's not really what I wanted, it does give you some additional questions down here at the bottom that you can ask that could be a little bit more in-depth, or they could just be a little bit, going in a different direction if that's what you're looking for. And so if you can either type in a new one, a follow-up question down here in the bottom in the follow-up box, or you can click on one of these questions. So how can I use AI to improve my presentation quality? So then we'll go here, and there's some more questions. There's some more answers to this here, which will help us. And again, one of the things that is really nice and really helpful is that it does give you the sources here. So, and it gives you why, or gives you a little number down here as to which source they used. So that way you can go through and go, okay, well, I don't really like that source. I'm not sure if I like where that source is, or I don't like getting information from that source. So I'm just going to go to a different one or a different source. And it can also, you can ask it to expand on something that it already talks about. So you can say, can you expand on content generation? And it can give you a little bit more information. And then if this is still, it's like, okay, well, this is a little bit wordy. Maybe we don't really want this. Maybe this is too much. We go, okay, well, can you explain that to me as if I was a 10-year-old? And then it gives you more simple, kind of an easier, maybe easier to, and you can use any, it doesn't have to be a 10-year-old. Obviously, you can kind of go, actually, I want it to be a little bit more in-depth. Can you tell it to me as if I was, a college student or a college professor, or, you can use any kind of way that you would like to expand on it. So you just basically need to give it context. That's something that is important. Like if you're wanting to give to get specific answers, just keep giving it more specifics, keep giving it more content, so that it can get to what you're specifically asking for, and it can give you the information the way that you most accurate or most easily can interpret it. Okay, so that's just an example of one. I'm going to show you another one just real fast, just so that you can see what it would look like on a different one as well. And this one's Claude, which this one's a fun one too. You can also use them. You don't have to be, asking questions about work. You can also ask them for recipes. You can send them a picture and say, hey, how do I make a recipe for this? Or, what's the best recipe for this? Or you can also ask it for helpful prompts or tips for writing a book. You can, there are so many different things that you can use it for. These are just a couple of little things that could be helpful, specifically too with your clients. If you're trying to describe something to a client and they're just not understanding it, and maybe they need it in a little bit more simple terms, and kind of like what Doug was saying, where he is a little bit biased on some things or a little bit, he's just more knowledgeable about certain things and certain terminology. So he's going to say things that not everyone's going to understand. So if you have that issue with a client and you know that before going into have a conversation with him, you can come in here and say, okay, give me a simple explanation of blah, 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 blah. And then it can kind of maybe help you so that you can help your client a little better. Okay, so let's go back to the AI. Okay, so then now we're going to talk about how to use AI to generate images. So this is another, these 3 images I generated using Firefly. So that's Adobe Firefly, it's their AI. There are a lot of different sources in which you can use image generation. A lot of different chats actually have it now. The one that I'm going to show you today is Firefly, but there are so many different ones, and they can be really helpful. So if you're wanting to market and you're putting up something in like on your website, or if you have something that you are wanting a little bit of extra, just a little bit nicer quality picture, but you don't really have anything and you can't really find anything that you're interested in, you can go to these AI generated images and type in exactly what you're looking for, and then it will pop up and generate these images for you according to exactly the field that you're wanting to give it. So I'll show you a little example of that. And this is the Adobe Firefly AI. And this one's kind of fun because here, I'll start actually from the beginning so you can see. So when you go to their site, this is what will show up. And I think you have to create an account in order to use the images or download them. But I do recommend it if you want to. There's a couple of other chats that you need to do that too. So that's up to you if you would like to do that. And so this one we're going to just click on the text to image and click generate. This one's kind of fun because we can go here and see what other people have said. So this one is emotive gestures, order and chaos, photorealistic, highly detailed. So this is kind of a cool image that AI generated based off of that description. Here's a picture of some donuts that someone put in. They said a captivating close-up capturing 5 donuts adorned with cinnamon and cream in a slow motion descent, each frozen in a moment of graceful fall against a dark background. And there's more information in their description as well. So the more detailed that you get, the more accurate the AI generated image is going to be. And it's going to try and give you exactly what you're asking for. So the more detailed you can be, the easier it will be to get the image that you're specifically looking for. As well as, so in our presentation, we also did the image of on the break slide. I just put like give me an image for someone who's on a 5-minute break. And that was the image that popped up, and I clicked on it and used that one for our presentation. So these can be super simple. You can be super simple with it and kind of get this fun image. Or if you want like a really, really specific image, you just need to give more detail. So we'll put in something that we're looking for. Let's do, let's see. Actually, let's do a photorealistic image of a couple of let's do an older couple walking down the street in London around, in the morning. And we can add that we want it to be a little bit, like dewy. We can add that we want, trees around. Okay, we'll just kind of go with that. So you don't have to be super specific or super in depth by any means. You just kind of can start playing around with it. And if you want to go through those other images and get some ideas and then make a better description, then that is also something that is great too. So this is something that it popped up just basically off of my simple prompt, which is a photorealistic image of an older couple walking down the street in London in the morning, dewy with trees. So we've got this image here, which is the back of them, and we got Big Ben in the back. This one, so it's a little bit harder sometimes when you do images that have their faces. You can see if you can zoom in a little bit, or if you can look closely at their faces look a little bit distorted, and certain parts of their hands look a little distorted. So you just want to make sure that if you are looking at it and you are going to use it for something, you might want to adjust things.
And I noticed, Morgan, that it's not photorealistic, right?
This is true, because I actually there's this button over here that says art, and I didn't click photo. So I can regenerate this though, and we can do it on a portrait scale. So that's something too. Like there are things that that you kind of have to play with it a little bit to figure out. And yeah, I definitely accidentally didn't click photo on that one. So, but these ones are a little bit more, photorealistic. Again, these aren't going to be perfect. I didn't give it quite enough detail for it to kind of feel just as photorealistic as I might want. Maybe I should have added, more context about what they were wearing, where they were going, like if they were eating something, if they were holding hands, like things like that. But this one, if you can tell, like with the photo, their images or their faces on their image look much better. But if you still look at her hand does look distorted still. So that is something to note and to make sure, but it's kind of fun to play around with, because you can generate these images and play around with it and go, oh, that's really great. I like that. And you can have some nice images that you could use for your marketing if you would like. So, so that's kind of that. That's a very quick and a very simple description of what you can do. I will show you that you can. I did see that in the little chat. You can download an image. So if you click on the picture, you can rate it as well, or you can report it if you would like to. You can edit the image over here in the corner. There are a few different ways that you can edit it and change it up a little bit. You can always change the prompt by adding more. Once you get this prompt, if you're like, well, I didn't really want this, I kind of wanted them to look more casual and not have like business attire, you can add that in there and then it'll regenerate an image for you. But if you do want to download, excuse me, you can go over here to the upper right-hand corner. It says more options, and you can click download. You can copy the link, you can copy the image, you can edit it, and you can, save it to your library, save it to your library or submit it to Firefly. So, and this is.
Can you request higher resolution or zoom in and stuff like that?
Yeah, so that's where you'd go down to here to the prompt, and you would just add more detail. And you say, I'd like them to have, a higher resolution, I'd like them to have different outfits on, specifically say what they're wearing, or, if you just basically keep giving it more to work off of. You say, I would like it to be, I'm trying to think of a good description. I'll go back to this and then we can see kind of some helpful ones that other people have done. So like this one, right? This is a very good picture of a dog that is very that looks like you took that picture. And that's an AI generated image. And so depending on what the AI is trying and what the context is, some of them can be super simple. So this one's just a playful Saint Bernard puppy running through the snow. Let me see if I can find one that gives a little bit more information though about the content of the image. This one's a good example of that, the donut one, because it is kind of, it's much more realistic. It looks like something that someone could have taken a picture of. It's definitely would be a hard picture to take, but it is something that looks more realistic, right? And these are why they added a little bit more, they just added so much information in their description. They said that they want it in like a slow motion descent. They, talked about the background. They talked about studio lighting. They talked about a captivating close-up. They added a lot of detail so that they could make sure that everything that they wanted in the image or everything that they wanted and that they were thinking about in their head could come across in the image. Okay, so I'm taking up way too much time on this. So we're going to go back to the presentation real quick. But that's just a brief description. If you guys are interested in doing that a little bit more, we are going to be doing a presentation, which I'll mention later, but we are going to be doing a little bit more about AI in general, and we can kind of go over that a little bit as well in that if you would like. Or also, you're also always welcome to call me and I can kind of walk you through if you're trying to figure out how to navigate this a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go kind of quick here with these next things. Oops, sorry. So that you guys can, or so that we can actually finish on time. But AI in the healthcare industry so there's a couple of, there's a few things, and a lot of these things we have mentioned before. These are things that are definitely going to be a concern for us and our agents. This also, it is just to note, this is an AI generated image that I asked it to produce for me. Anyway, so I'm going to go through these a little bit quicker. So after this, we do have this we'll have this recording downloaded and we'll have the presentation available. So if you are interested in this a little bit more in depth, you're welcome to view it there. And I'm sorry that I kind of took a little bit too much time in other areas. So, okay. So one, streamlining administrative tasks. So AI could be used as a first step in prior authorization, which we have talked about before, but could also be there could be issues with that as well, right? But it could be used also with updating patient records or billing. We could then go in and double check what the AI has input so that we can make sure that there are no biases or errors. So that's the problem too, that we need to make sure that we are addressing, or I guess something that we need to make sure we're making a note of, is that if we are going to be using this and if we are going to be implementing it more and more, we do need to make sure that we are checking for those biases, those errors, and checking for human error as well as AI error. So we wouldn't want to just take the word. So if someone tells you you have an issue and we wouldn't want to take that one specific person's word. If it's a really big issue, we would like to also get, some second opinions. So that's kind of how I feel AI should be a little bit, is just kind of making sure that we're double checking and keeping all of those things squared away. So I'm going to actually skip to the next slide so that we can get to the questions that we need to have answered. These are some of the drawbacks of relying too heavily on AI in healthcare. These are kind of common concerns that can be concerns throughout any industry, and some of them are specific to healthcare. So inaccuracies and errors, those are going to be a big issue that we need to make sure that we are aware of. Those are obviously things that can happen with humans as well when we are using them, but it's also important to make sure that we aren't just relying solely on AI because of that, because can be biases and errors, like we've said. Unemployment. Using AI automation could streamline certain processes, which could in some cases lead to job misplacement. Privacy concerns. This is something that we have discussed, but I think should be mentioned again to reiterate the importance of regulations and restrictions on AI in the healthcare industry. There is currently a lack of universal guidelines, so that is something to be aware of and something to be concerned about, that we need to make sure that we at least have that awareness of, so that we can know that when we are using AI and when we are relying on AI. Generalizations. AI models often perform well in controlled settings, but struggle when faced with diverse patient populations or real-world clinical situations. So this, to me, when I thought of this, I kind of thought of like a car. So, right, when they tell you that, okay, this car gets 32 miles per gallon on the, on the highway or something. So the way that they are going to be determining if that car can give you 32 miles per gallon is going to be a very, structured. It's usually not like they were actually driving and they just found, okay, yeah, so when I was driving from this part of this town to this part, there's going to be context, there's a little bit of nuance, so it kind of just depends, but generalizations specifically when coming or when talking with patients can be an issue. So we'll go to the next slide. We won't do that video. It's just a description of the possibilities of AI with kind of helping other people in the world, as well as kind of helping could possibly benefit in healthcare. So this one we're going to kind of just skip over because I know that we're heading on time. But it's the AI's broad societal impact. This is pretty. It's about basically a summary of kind of all of the things that we've talked about throughout. And all of the positive, but also some of the negative effects that it can cause on our society as a whole. Okay, so AI's impact on the environment. So this is something that is a growing concern. The more that we the more that we learn about AI, the more we're learning also that there is an impact on the environment that it does have. AI does use a lot of energy. And this is something, and it can produce pollutants, which can be kind of an issue. So we do need to make sure that we are aware of how much energy AI requires and how much of a carbon footprint and potential harm to the ecosystem that it does have. We will kind of go over the rest is a little bit kind of just, let me see if these are something. Sorry, I'm trying to go quickly so that we can get to the end question section. Yeah. Okay, so we'll scooch to the next one. Can AI reduce the environmental impact of humans? There are a couple of things that it could possibly do. These are things that could be helpful and useful with AI. Climate change mitigation. AI can analyze data on greenhouse gas emissions and weather patterns and other environmental factors to inform policies and strategies for reducing emissions and mitigating climate change. So this is something that could be helpful. Environmental monitoring, resource efficiency, sustainable practices. These are all things that could be very helpful with using AI in towards our impact on the environment. Okay, so we're going to end on this last slide, which is talking about our artificial intelligence training. So this is going to be more of an in-depth, more of a kind of how-to, a little bit more training that we're going to be doing on April 26th at 10. So that's another Pinnacle time. It's a Friday. So you're welcome to join that one if you would like. I don't believe This one will not be a CE. So that one is a little bit different, but you're welcome to join that one if you would like. And that concludes the end of our presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to chime in now. You can unmute yourself and chat, or you can write it in the notes. Yeah.
Well, Morgan, thank you very
I have a
much.
question for Doug. Doug,
Yeah.
I noticed in the chat you made the comment that Perplexity is free. There's no monthly fee. But I've always thought that if something's for free, then I'm the product.
So right now, it is free, and they are trying very hard to, for lack of a better term, replace Google. So when you do it, you will not be the recipient of lots of advertising. I did find out, and I suspect this, I don't know this. I did do a search on some topic, and I can't remember what it was. And then a day later, or that afternoon, I don't remember which, I started seeing advertising come my way. So I think what they're doing is, even though they're not giving you the advertising, they may be selling to other people the fact that you're interested in X. So it is, when I say it is relatively free, but not absolutely free. And what they're trading in is your attention, right? They're aware of your attention, and that's what's going on. But it's still a lot less cluttered, a lot more clear, a lot more relevant. The information is a lot more relevant to you as a user than the Google stuff is. I don't know if I answered your question, but no, there are no more polls, Ashley. There will be questions coming out to you. Morgan will be sending questions out to you that you will need to answer and get back to us.
I will send those within the hour. If you don't receive them, please send me a message or give us a call, and we'll make sure to get that sent to you.
So I'm going to stop the recording now. We'll be sending those things out to you. We will stay online here. If you have questions, stay online and talk, but